Ashes of Andromeda, the silent planet. Darkness floated in the cold silence of space. A once thriving colony on Andromeda 6 stood still. Empty buildings, flickering lights, and thick dust swirling in the wind. A child's toy rolled across the ground, untouched. No voices, no life, only silence. Then, a scream cut through the darkness. Dr. Lira Ren stepped off the transport shuttle, her boots crunching on cracked metal panels. Her breath formed a thin mist inside her helmet. Around her stood the empty remains of Halden Colony, the largest human settlement in the Andromeda system. Once home to 60,000 people, now not a single soul responded to the emergency beacons. Lira, a brilliant xenobiologist, led the mission. Her team of 5 had been chosen for one reason. They were the best at investigating unknown biological threats. She was tall, lean, and focused. Eyes sharp, voice calm. But even she couldn't shake the unease crawling up her spine. "This place feels dead," said Commander Cade Holt, her second in command, scanning the nearby buildings with his rifle. "Not dead," Lyra replied softly. "Too quiet. Something happened here, and it wasn't fast." They moved through the colony's central square. Personal belongings lay scattered. Bags, datapads, cups of cold coffee, some still half full. One building's door had been broken inward, not outward. That told Lyra something had come in, not out. "Power is still running," said Mara, the engineer. "That's impossible. If this place was shut down a month ago, the grid should be fried. Someone or something is keeping it alive." Lyra said, "Let's find out who." They entered the main operations center. Screens flickered, showing static. Security footage played on a loop, until it didn't. One file caught their attention. It showed people screaming, running. A black liquid was spreading across the floor. Then, static again. "Freeze frame," Lyra ordered. The video paused on one figure. A man, eyes wide, mouth open in horror. Black veins crawled under his skin, pulsing. Then something moved behind him. Fast, alien, wrong. Lyra's eyes narrowed. "We need to find the water source." They made their way to the colony's water processing facility. The smell hit them first, a mix of rot and something chemical, almost metallic. Inside, the filters were clogged with a dark, fibrous slime. Samples were taken immediately. "This isn't natural," Lyra said. "It's growing." Her portable scanner beeped. Multiple unknown organic signatures, and one moving. Now. The team froze. A low clicking echoed from the far end of the room. Weapons raised. Lights on. In the shadows, they found it. A corpse, but not just any corpse. It had been changed. Its body was bloated, muscles torn in strange directions, bones twisted like they were made of rubber. Black, root-like tendrils grew from its mouth and chest. Its eyes were empty, but its jaw was still moving. Mara gasped and turned away. Even Holt looked pale. "Tag it for autopsy," Lyra said, swallowing the fear in her throat. "We're dealing with something parasitic." Back at their mobile lab unit, Lyra and her team began the autopsy. Underneath the corpse's skin were clusters of parasitic sacs, each filled with tiny worm-like creatures. They moved even without a host. "This thing isn't just living in the body," Lyra explained to the others. "It's rewriting it, mutating it. And fast," said Holt. "This body's only been dead a few days." Lyra looked into the microscope. One of the parasites was already splitting, changing form, adapting. "This isn't from Earth. Not from any human system." Mara shook her head. "So where the hell is it from?" No one answered. That night, while the others rested, Lyra stayed awake, reviewing the data. She kept replaying the same security footage. The way the infection spread. The way the victims moved. There was intelligence behind it. Not just a mindless disease, something more. Outside, the wind howled. Inside, The lab hummed quietly. Then the scream came. Lira ran from the lab to the sleeping quarters. Holt was already there, aiming his rifle at the floor. It was Malik, the team's medic. He was convulsing violently, his body arching, eyes rolled back. "Hold him down," Lira shouted. Malik thrashed like he was being electrocuted. Blood poured from his nose and ears. His skin bulged, then flattened, then bulged again. Lira quickly scanned his body. "He's infected." "But how?" "He didn't touch anything," Holt shouted. Lyra's heart dropped. She looked at Malik's boot. A smear of black slime on the heel. It must have gotten in through contact. Or maybe the air. Suddenly, Malik stopped moving. Silence. Then, his eyes opened, and they were black. He lunged. Holt fired. 2 shots to the chest. Malik didn't fall. He screamed, a terrible, inhuman sound, and charged again. Lira grabbed a sedative injector and jabbed it into Malik's neck. It hissed. Malik staggered, then dropped to the ground, unconscious but twitching. Everyone stood still, breathing hard. Mara looked at Lira. "What now?" Lira stared at Malik's still body. His skin was already changing. Black veins, like cracks in glass, spread across his face. "We isolate him. Run full blood work. This changes everything." Back in the lab, Lira stared into the microscope again. Malik's blood cells were exploding, reshaping. The parasite was using human biology like clay. But something else stood out. A new protein chain was forming. One Lira had never seen before. It looked like it was trying to communicate. A code. A message. Her hand trembled. This wasn't just a parasite. This was a message in infection. And she had a terrible feeling. It was meant for her. Echoes in the blood. The monitor buzzed quietly in the background as Dr. Lira Ren stared at the live neural scan of Malik, her infected crewmate. Inside his brain, something moved. Tiny worm-like creatures, glowing faint blue, slithered through his neural pathways. They weren't random. They followed a pattern, a purpose. "Are you seeing this?" Mara whispered from behind her. Lira nodded slowly. "They're not just feeding. They're mapping his brain." Mara looked horrified. "You mean learning?" Lira didn't answer. She was too focused. Every time the parasite touched a nerve cluster, Malik's vitals spiked. Heart rate, brain activity, muscle tension. Everything was rising fast. "This thing's adapting. Fast." From the observation chamber, Holt's voice crackled over the comms. "He's waking up." Malik was strapped to a reinforced medical table, unconscious but twitching. His skin was pale, veined with black streaks. His eyes fluttered open, then locked onto the camera like he knew someone was watching. "Prep the sedation again," Lira said. "We need more time." Before Mara could respond, Malik screamed. A high-pitched, unnatural sound. His body surged forward, snapping one of the restraints like it was made of string. "Override the lockdown," Holt shouted. Lira hit the emergency seal. The reinforced barrier dropped between the lab and observation room, but Malik was already on his feet. He looked different now, taller, more muscular, like something inside had rebuilt him. His eyes were pitch black. He slammed into the glass. "Lira, he's going to break through," Mara cried. Lira grabbed a tranquilizer gun and aimed. "Open the chamber. Now." The door hissed open. Malik charged. Lira fired. One dart, then another. They hit his chest, but he didn't slow down. Mara screamed as Malik grabbed her arm and threw her across the room. She hit the wall hard and fell, unconscious. Lira didn't think. She dove between them, pulling a nearby metal tray off a counter and slamming it into Malik's head. He growled and grabbed her shoulder, throwing her to the ground. He raised his arm to strike. Then, bam! Holt tackled him from behind, driving an electric baton into his back. Malik convulsed, screamed, and fell to his knees. Lira rolled away, gasping. "Get Mira out," Holt yelled. Lira limped toward Mira, blood running down her leg. She checked her pulse, still alive. Then she looked at her own arm. A deep scratch ran across her forearm. It wasn't bleeding. It was glowing. Faint blue light pulsed from beneath her skin, like something alive was crawling just under the surface. "No," she whispered. Behind her, Malik's body finally collapsed, twitching, then went still. Later, in the isolation chamber, Lira sat alone, staring at the wound. Her skin felt hot, but there was no pain, just the light. It flickered in sync with her heartbeat. She tapped the communicator. "Holt." "It scratched me." There was silence. Then Holt replied, voice low, "We'll figure it out. You're not him. You're still you." "For now," she said. In the lab, the samples from Malik's blood were still multiplying, evolving. One cell split and turned into 3 different types within seconds. Mira stirred on the medical bed nearby, groaning. Lira moved to her side. "You're okay. You hit your head. What about Malik?" Lira hesitated, sedated, contained. For now. Mira's eyes flicked to Lira's glowing wound. "You too." Lira nodded. Mira grabbed her hand. "We'll fix this, together." But Lira wasn't so sure. That night, Lira ran tests on her own blood. Under the microscope, her white cells were fighting something that was smarter than them. But the strange part, they weren't losing. In fact, some of them were changing, becoming something new. Lira stared at the screen. She was evolving, not dying. She was becoming something else, and it terrified her. She closed her eyes, trying to breathe. Images from the colony's video logs flashed in her mind. People infected, screaming, transforming. What if she couldn't stop it? What if she was the next Malik? She looked at her hand again. The blue glow was stronger now, and it was spreading. The hive emerges. Darkness had settled over Halden Colony, but the usual stillness was broken by a distant, rhythmic sound. Dr. Lira Ren stood at the edge of the central square, her senses alert. The faint blue glow beneath her skin had intensified, casting eerie patterns on her arm. She clenched her fist, trying to suppress the growing unease. Commander Cade Holt approached, his rifle at the ready. "Lira, do you hear that?" She nodded, her eyes scanning the horizon. "It's coming from the tunnels." Suddenly, the ground trembled. Metal grates covering the underground passages rattled violently. One by one, they burst open, and from the depths emerged the colonists, once human, now grotesquely transformed. Their eyes glowed an unnatural blue, mirroring the hue of Lira's wound. Their movements were synchronized, almost mechanical, as they swarmed into the square. "Fall back," Holt shouted, firing into the advancing horde. The team retreated, their weapons blazing. Mira, still recovering from her earlier injury, stumbled but was quickly supported by Malik, who had regained some of his strength. They moved swiftly through the colony's outskirts, heading toward the dense jungle that bordered the settlement. As they plunged into the thick foliage, the sounds of pursuit faded slightly. The towering trees and tangled underbrush provided some cover, but Lira knew it was only temporary. They needed a plan. "We can't keep running," Mira panted. "They'll find us." Lira's mind raced. The vision she'd been experiencing since her injury had become more vivid, flashes of alien landscapes, symbols, and structures. One image stood out, a towering obsidian structure deep within the jungle. "I think I know where to go," Lira said, her voice resolute. Holt gave her a questioning look. "How? We've never been here before." "I can't explain it," she admitted, "but I believe there's something in the jungle that can help us. An alien structure." Trusting her instincts, the team followed Lira deeper into the wilderness. After hours of navigating treacherous terrain, they arrived at a clearing. In its center stood the structure from Lyra's visions, a monolithic spire, pulsating with the same blue light that emanated from her wound. "This can't be a coincidence," Malik murmured. Mara approached the structure, her hand hovering over its surface. "It's ancient, and it's alive." Lyra felt a magnetic pull toward the spire. As she placed her hand on it, a surge of energy coursed through her body. Images flooded her mind, scenes of an advanced civilization, creators of the parasites. They had engineered them as weapons, but the organisms had rebelled, consuming their makers and spreading uncontrollably. "It's a weapon," Lyra whispered, tears streaming down her face. They created the parasites as a weapon, but they couldn't control them. Holt's expression darkened. "So we're dealing with a bioweapon that's gone rogue." Before anyone could respond, Lyra's vision blurred. A cacophony of voices echoed in her mind, speaking in unison. "You are the key. Join us. Become one with the hive." She staggered back, clutching her head. The blue glow beneath her skin intensified, illuminating the clearing. "Lyra!" Mara shouted, rushing to her side. Lyra's eyes snapped open, now glowing with the same blue hue. She looked at her team, fear and determination warring within her. "They're in my mind," she said, her voice trembling. "The hive is speaking to me." The jungle seemed to close in around them as the weight of the revelation settled. The battle was no longer just physical. It was a fight for control, for identity, and for the survival of humanity itself. Host of secrets. Lyra's breath caught in her throat. That howl, it wasn't just noise. It was a signal, a call, and deep inside her bones, something answered. She clutched her head, fighting the sudden pulse of hunger that wasn't hers. The hive was aware of her now, truly aware, not just curious. It was watching. She stumbled back into the camp, startling Malik, who was adjusting the solar beacon. "Hey, what's wrong?" "They know," she said. "They felt me." Malik's face darkened. "We need to move." "Where?" Holt asked, walking over with a tired frown. "We can't keep running. They'll find us anywhere on this planet." "There's an underground chamber," Lyra said quickly. "I saw it in the vision. A vault buried under this region. The others, the failed hybrids, they're in there. We might find answers. Maybe even a way to stop this. Or walk right into a trap," Holt muttered. Mara stepped closer. "But if she's right, we need to know what happened to them. If this parasite has done this before, we might learn how to fight it." Holt sighed. "You better be sure about this, Doc." "I'm sure," Lyra said, her voice steady. "We leave before dawn." Hours later, they hiked through dense jungle, moving fast and silent. The further they went, the thicker the air felt. Oppressive, like walking through invisible webs. The plants grew in strange patterns, twisted unnaturally, pulsing with faint bioluminescence, as if the hive had already touched this place. Lyra led them with certainty, as if pulled by invisible threads. They climbed a rocky ridge and stopped at the edge of a wide basin. In its center lay a black stone structure, half buried in soil and vines. It wasn't natural. "That's it," she whispered. The descent was treacherous, and as they approached the entrance, Malik wiped sweat from his forehead. "You sure this place hasn't already been raided?" "No," Lyra said. "It's sealed. The hive can't reach it, not directly." They cleared the vines away, revealing a metallic doorway covered in alien symbols. Lyra stepped forward. Her blood pulsed, and the symbols lit up softly, reacting to her presence. The door hissed open. The corridor beyond was dark and silent. Walls pulsed with a faint glow as if alive. The air was cold, dry. They moved slowly, weapons drawn, until they reached a large chamber deep within. Inside were the pods from her vision. Tall, narrow glass tubes filled with blue mist. Lyra approached the nearest one. A man floated inside. His eyes were closed, but his veins glowed with the same blue shimmer that now ran through her. "This is one of them," she said. "Another hybrid. Mara studied the display next to the pod. Vital signs. Weak, but present. He's still alive. Lyra placed her hand on the glass. Can we wake him? Malik shook his head. No interface we understand. This system is alien. We'd need time. We don't have time, Holt muttered. We should leave. Now. But it was too late. A piercing screech echoed from above, distant but closing fast. They're coming, Mara whispered. Lyra turned, her eyes wide. We hold them off. We protect this place. Holt looked at her. Even if we die. Lyra nodded. This place holds answers, maybe even a cure. Without hesitation, they sealed the chamber's doors and set up defenses. Holt planted laser traps. Mara took position with her rifle, and Malik calibrated shock mines. Lyra, still drawn to the pods, studied each hybrid's face. One of them, a woman, looked eerily like her. Same bone structure, same intensity. Who are you? Lyra whispered. Then, a flicker in her mind. A message whispered in the dream space. We were made. Like you, but not chosen. Chosen? By what? She flinched as a thunderous crash rocked the structure. The hive was outside, dozens of infected swarming toward the door. Shadows flickered beyond the cracks, and a low groan echoed through the stone. The first wave hit hard. Laser traps sliced through the initial attackers, but more followed. They moved with eerie coordination, ignoring pain, using bodies to pile against the entrance. Inside, Lyra doubled over. Pain exploded in her skull as the hive screamed into her mind. They were calling her, begging her to return. She grit her teeth. No, I'm not yours. Malik rushed to her side. You okay? I'm holding it back, she gasped. They want control. I won't let them. Outside, the sound of combat grew louder. Holt and Mara fired in bursts, trying to thin the wave. Then a new figure appeared in the doorway, taller, armored in black bone, eyes glowing like stars. What the hell is that? Holt shouted. Lyra stared at the creature. It was a hive commander, more evolved than the others. Smarter, deadlier. She knew it. Somehow, she could feel its mind pressing against hers. It wants me, she whispered. It sees me as competition. The commander stepped forward and stopped, its head tilted, studying her. Then it spoke, not aloud, but inside her head. You are not complete. Join us. Fulfill your purpose. Lyra stood firm. I'm not your weapon. It hissed in rage and lunged forward. Holt fired, but the commander dodged effortlessly. It struck Holt, sending him flying into the wall. Mara screamed and opened fire, but the beast kept coming. Lyra stepped forward, feeling power rise in her chest. Her veins lit up, her eyes glowing. She raised her hand, and the creature froze mid-strike, caught in an invisible force. Everyone stared. I don't know how, Lyra said, but I can control it. She focused harder, and the commander snarled, then collapsed to the ground, twitching. The remaining infected paused outside, confused, uncoordinated. They were linked to it, Malik said. You broke the chain. I need to hold them, Lyra said, trembling. It's like trying to control a storm. The team quickly dragged Holt back inside. He was hurt, but alive. Lyra knelt beside him, her hands glowing. Without understanding why, she placed them on his chest. A soft pulse of blue light passed from her into his body. The bleeding slowed. His breathing eased. What the hell? Holt whispered. I think I can heal, Lyra said, stunned. You're not human anymore, Mara said quietly. Lyra didn't respond. Then her mind was flooded with another memory, not her own. She saw the creators of the parasite, tall golden beings, creating hybrids to fight a cosmic war. But the hive became too powerful, too fast. It turned on them. The hybrids were experiments. Some survived. Others became corrupted. The vaults were their last hope. places to preserve knowledge, store keys to resist the hive. But only someone strong enough, someone chosen, could awaken that knowledge. Lira was the last. She turned to the others. This planet is just the beginning. The hive is spreading. Across systems, across galaxies. I can stop it, but only if I learn to control what's inside me. Malik stared at her. How? We find the other vaults, she said. I need to understand the full truth. This, evolution, it's not a curse. It's a weapon. One we can turn back on them. Mara nodded. Then we stick together. We fight. Lyra looked down at the commander's corpse. Its body was already decaying into ash. A hive had abandoned it, disconnected it from the network. She stood slowly, her eyes glowing brighter than before. I'm not just a scientist anymore, she said. I'm the cure. As the group moved deeper into the vault, sealing it behind them, Lyra felt the hive stir again in the distance. Angry, afraid. The war had only just begun. The forgotten outpost. Transmission received. Project Genesis. Phase failed. The words echoed across the command center. Lyra stood frozen, her heart thudding. The signal was old, warped by static, but unmistakably human. It had come from a research outpost orbiting the gas giant Virex 7, an outpost lost decades ago. Malik leaned closer to the console, adjusting frequencies. It was automated, on a loop, but it came with coordinates. Genesis, Lyra whispered. That was the first code name for the parasite experiments. If that outpost has the original research, we might finally understand what we're dealing with. Holt, still recovering from his injuries, stepped in. It's a ghost station, probably stripped clean or crawling with infected. Then we go in fast, Lyra said. Strike team only. We break quarantine, get what we need, and get out. Mara looked uneasy. Breaking orbit protocol will alert every remaining patrol in the quadrant. Lyra looked at each of them. The hive is spreading. We don't have time for red tape. If there's even a chance that the original data is there, we have to try. The team agreed. Hours later, they launched a small stealth shuttle and headed for the outpost. Virex 7 loomed below, a massive swirling gas giant that reflected soft gold and deep purple hues across the shuttle's hull. The station came into view slowly, a ringed structure tethered to a central spire, flickering with minimal emergency power. No docking signals, no life signs. Looks abandoned, Malik said, guiding the shuttle into a manual dock. Until it isn't, Holt muttered. The team stepped into the outpost. The air was stale, the gravity low. Emergency lights flickered. Dust floated through the halls. Time had not been kind here. They moved slowly, checking corners, weapons ready. Lyra led them to the command deck where they found control panels coated in grime. Malik powered up a terminal. Still functional, he said, surprised. Accessing logs now. Lines of corrupted data scrolled by until finally, video thumbnails appeared. Lyra tapped the oldest one. The screen blinked. A shaky feed came into focus. A man in a white lab coat stared into the camera, his eyes sunken. Voice raspy. Dr. Orion Lex, lead geneticist, Project Genesis. Day 19. We've isolated strain Delta 3. Early tests on rodents show rapid neural adaptation. We're proceeding to human trials. There is no time to wait. Mara frowned. Human trials. The next log played. Dr. Lex again, but this time his hands trembled. Subject 1. Myself. Strain Delta 3 injected. Fever hit fast. Hallucinations within 2 hours. But enhanced perception. I can hear the systems hum. I feel connected to everything. Lyra felt her stomach twist. The next video showed Lex again, now pale, eyes glowing faintly blue. His voice was calm. I was wrong. This is not evolution. It's possession. It speaks inside me. Not words, just hunger. The screen cut to static. Malik cursed under his breath. They injected themselves. That's insane. Lira shook her head. Desperation makes people do insane things. Suddenly, the lights flickered. A motion sensor activated in the far corridor. A red indicator blinked. Movement, Holt said, raising his rifle. They followed the signal, stepping deeper into the abandoned section of the outpost. The corridor ended at a heavy blast door. Scratches lined the metal. Lira placed her hand on the panel. It slid open slowly with a groan. Inside was a sealed chamber. Broken lab equipment. Dark walls stained with something old and dried. And in the center, a stasis pod still humming with power. A body floated inside. Dr. Orion Lex. He looked older, mutated. His skin was a pale gray-blue. His veins pulsed visibly beneath the surface. But his eyes were open. "He's awake," Mara whispered. Lira approached the pod slowly. "He's alive." After all these years, the screen beside the pod blinked. Vital signs. Active. Neural activity. Elevated. Suddenly, the pod hissed. The seal broke. Gas vented out. The door slid open. Lex stepped forward. His body moved with unnatural grace. He looked at them with calm curiosity. "You came," he said, his voice layered with static and something alien. "I waited a long time." Holt raised his rifle. "Don't move." Lex ignored him, eyes focused on Lira. "You're the next generation. I can feel it." Lira stepped back. "What happened to you?" He smiled. "I became what they feared." In a flash, Lex lunged. Holt fired, but Lex moved too fast. He knocked Holt aside and grabbed Lira by the arm. Their minds connected. A rush of images flooded Lira's thoughts. Alien skies, endless wars, the origin of the parasite. It was not a single entity, but a fragment of something far older, a force meant to consume all conscious life and reshape it. Lex was its prophet. Lira screamed and pushed him back with a burst of energy. Blue light exploded from her chest, throwing Lex into the wall. Lira screamed and pushed him back with a burst of energy. Blue light exploded from her chest, throwing Lex into the wall. Mara and Malik pulled her away as Holt dragged himself up. Lex stood, unhurt, smiling. "You're not ready," he said calmly. "But you will be." He stepped into the shadows and vanished. The team rushed back to the command deck, sealing doors behind them. "He's not just infected," Malik said. "He's evolved beyond anything we've seen." Lira stared at the last log. It showed coordinates. "Another vault." "He showed it to me," she said. "There's another vault. Maybe the first. We need to go there." "You okay?" Mara asked. Lira nodded slowly. "No, but I know what to do next." Behind them, the console blinked again. "Transmission received. Phase 2 begins now." Here is the completed part 6 of the story, titled Shadows of the Cure. Shadows of the Cure. The cold silence of the abandoned research facility was broken only by the hum of Lira's breathing, a sharp contrast to the nightmare that had unfolded here. The mutated scientist, once a man full of purpose, now a grotesque mockery of humanity, stood before her. His body, twisted and bloated from the parasite, still had the eyes of a man, but they were clouded with madness. "We were the beginning," he said, his voice rough, but unmistakably fluent. "You are the end." Lira's heart skipped a beat. His words made no sense until they did. She had been through so much, fought through so many horrors, but now, standing face to face with this thing, the weight of his words hit her like a freight train. "Explain," Lira demanded, her voice trembling despite her best efforts to stay calm. The scientist chuckled bitterly, the sound hollow in the empty lab. "You were never meant to survive this, Dr. Ren. You were just another experiment in their twisted plans. But they didn't count on you. The parasite." He paused, coughing up something that looked like dark tar. "The parasite, was engineered for evolution. But you're something else. The final phase, a living antibody. You are the cure. Lyra's mind raced. She knew she was changing, but she hadn't realized the extent of it. The parasite inside her, the one she had been fighting so desperately, was altering her on a cellular level. What had started as a fight for survival was now something far more complicated. She was becoming something else, a weapon, or perhaps something worse. But the scientist's revelation was not the end of the nightmare. No, it was only the beginning. Lyra felt a growing unease. She could hear the hum of the parasite in her mind, a faint whisper that now seemed to understand her as much as she understood it. It was adapting to her, evolving in ways she couldn't comprehend. It was learning, growing, and shifting faster than she could control. A beep from her communicator interrupted her thoughts. Lyra tapped the device, her hand shaking slightly as she tried to focus on the message that came through. Dr. Ren, this is command. We've been monitoring your transmissions. We have a request. The voice was cold, mechanical. It wasn't one of her team members. We believe we can use your condition, the parasite inside you. We need to discuss weaponizing it. You're to meet us at the designated coordinates. Failure to comply will result in immediate termination of support. The transmission cut off abruptly. Lyra's heart raced, but she quickly disabled the communicator. She couldn't let them take control. She couldn't let them use her as a weapon. She had to finish what she had started. But her thoughts were interrupted again. A beep. Another transmission. This time, it was her old mentor, Dr. Malcolm Pierce. His voice was urgent, but she could hear the hesitation behind it. Lyra, you need to listen to me, he said, his voice softer now. I've been trying to protect you. But you need to understand, this is bigger than both of us. They're coming for you, and there's nothing I can do to stop them. Lyra's stomach twisted. She had always trusted Malcolm, but now, in this moment, his words felt like a betrayal. What are you talking about? She demanded. There was a long silence, and then his voice, full of sorrow, broke through. I'm sorry, Lyra. They're already on their way. I had to tell them where you were. The weight of his words hit her like a blow. Betrayal. It was the last thing she had expected. Her mentor, the man who had once guided her, had just condemned her to a fate worse than death. But why? What had driven him to make that choice? Her mind whirled, but there was no time to think. The sound of distant engines echoed in the halls of the research facility. They were coming. The corporate warship. They were coming for her, and there was no escaping it. Lyra grabbed the nearest weapon, a plasma rifle, and ran for the nearest exit. She could feel the parasite inside her, twisting, churning as if it were aware of the impending danger. It was becoming more and more difficult to keep control of her own mind. She could feel the anger building inside her, a rage that threatened to consume everything in its path. The parasite was using her emotions, feeding off her fear, her anger. She couldn't let it win. She sprinted down the corridor, her breath ragged, her pulse quickening. The door to the outside was close, but as she reached for the handle, a voice stopped her. It's too late, Lyra. The mutated scientist's voice echoed in the hallway behind her. Lyra spun around, her gun raised, but the scientist was already gone. She didn't know how he had moved so quickly, but she didn't care. The warship was coming, and there was no time left. She bolted outside, her mind racing. The only thing that mattered now was survival. She had to keep moving. The parasite inside her would either make her the cure or the weapon of the galaxy's end, and she wasn't sure which side she was on anymore. The warship was closing in. The time for running was over. The sound of engines grew louder, and the flash of the warship's blinding lights filled the sky. Lyra's eyes narrowed. The hunt was on, and she was the prey. The bio-war begins. The war had begun. Orbital bombardment rained down on the Hive tunnels beneath the surface of Andromeda 6. The air shook with the force of the explosions, and the screams of the dying echoed through the comms, cutting through the chaos like a sharp knife. The air was thick with the scent of burning soil and charred metal as explosions rocked the surface, sending plumes of smoke high into the atmosphere. On the ground, human factions had mobilized, hoping to capitalize on the chaos and capture the parasite. And Lira Ren, the key to ending the war. Lira sprinted through the jungle, her enhanced perception guiding her through the dense foliage. Her senses were sharp, every movement and sound amplified. She could feel the vibrations in the air, the subtle rustle of leaves, the distant hum of engines. She knew the military factions were closing in. She had to get to the Hive core before they did. Her mind raced, thoughts colliding with each other. The parasite, the war, the power coursing through her veins. It was all connected. The Hive had evolved. And so had she. She could feel the changes in her body, the adaptive regeneration, the heightened senses, the power. But it was a double-edged sword. The more she used her abilities, the more she felt the parasite's influence taking root inside her. She was becoming something else, something not entirely human. As she moved, the ground trembled beneath her feet. The sounds of warfare were closing in, but she had no time to worry about that. Her mind was fixed on one thing, the Hive core. It was the heart of the parasite, and she had to destroy it before it spread beyond Andromeda 6. If the Hive reached the other colonies, it would be the end of humanity. She couldn't let that happen. The voices of the Hive began to creep into her mind. At first, it was a whisper barely audible over the cacophony of battle. But soon it grew louder, clearer. "You are the key," the Hive whispered. "You are one of us." Lyra stumbled, her heart racing. She could feel the Hive's presence in her mind, as if it were watching her, guiding her. It was tempting, like a cold hand reaching out, offering her power. But she pushed the thought aside. She had a mission. She couldn't let the Hive control her. Not now. Not ever. She glanced behind her, sensing the military factions closing in. Their ships hovered above, guns trained on the jungle below. They were after her, after the power inside her. They thought she was the weapon they needed to defeat the Hive. But they were wrong. She wasn't their weapon. She was the one who would destroy the Hive, not control it. Lyra's thoughts were interrupted as a sudden explosion shook the ground beneath her. She ducked, barely avoiding the debris that fell around her. She could hear the roar of the engines overhead. Factions were preparing to drop troops into the jungle. Her heart raced, but she didn't stop. She couldn't. The Hive core was close, she could feel it. She reached a clearing and paused for a moment to catch her breath. The jungle around her was eerily silent, the usual sounds of wildlife replaced by the distant hum of technology. The war was in full swing, but she had to push forward. She wasn't just running from the factions, she was running from the growing influence of the parasite inside her. Her wound, the one that had first marked her transformation, throbbed faintly. She glanced down at it, the faint glow still present. It was a sign. She was more than human now. She could feel the Hive's influence in every cell of her body, but it wasn't enough to control her. Not yet. She continued her journey, but the further she went, the stronger the pull of the Hive became. She could hear it calling to her, urging her to give in. The visions were becoming more intense, flashes of burning planets and alien wars. She could see the Hive's history in her mind, a never-ending cycle of evolution and destruction. It was a war that had been fought long before humanity even knew of the parasite. Lyra stumbled again, her vision blurring. She gritted her teeth and pushed through it. She had to get to the Hive core. She had to end this before it spread further. The faint glow from her wound brightened, and the voice of the Hive grew louder. "You are one of us," it whispered again, but this time it was clearer, almost welcoming. "Come to us. We will make you whole." Lyra shook her head, trying to clear the thoughts from her mind. She wasn't going to give in. She couldn't. She had to fight. The future of humanity depended on her. Suddenly, the ground shook once more. This time, the tremors were stronger, and the air was thick with the hum of something massive approaching. She could feel the hive core pulsating beneath the surface of the planet. It was close, very close. Her enhanced senses detected movement, multiple figures approaching fast. She turned to face them, her mind racing. The military factions had found her. They had intercepted her transmission, and now they were coming to capture her, alive or dead. Lira stood her ground, breathing deeply, focusing on the hive core. She could feel it calling to her, drawing her in, but she couldn't allow herself to fall under its control. Not yet. The first soldier appeared from the trees, his weapon raised. He didn't hesitate. He fired. Lira reacted instantly, her enhanced reflexes allowing her to dodge the blast. She pushed herself forward, faster than she had ever moved before, her body reacting instinctively to the danger. The soldier's weapon discharged again, but Lira was already gone, disappearing into the trees before he could take another shot. She kept running, her breath coming in shallow gasps. She was almost there. The hive core was within reach, its presence overwhelming, calling her name. But she wouldn't give in. Not yet. As she neared the hive's location, the voice of the hive grew louder, more insistent. "You are the one who will lead us. Come to us, Lira." Lira stumbled, her body reacting to the force of the hive's influence, but she pushed forward, determined to reach her goal. She couldn't let the hive win. She couldn't let herself become a part of it. Finally, she reached the entrance to the hive core. The massive structure loomed before her, its dark, pulsating surface alive with energy. The hive was here, and it was waiting for her. She stepped forward, but as her foot touched the ground, she heard it. The hive core called her by name. The core below. The air was thick with tension as Lira descended into the massive alien chamber. The walls pulsed like a heartbeat, radiating an eerie, otherworldly glow. Every step she took echoed, the sound amplified by the cavernous space beneath Andromeda's crust. It was both beautiful and terrifying, a place where life, as she knew it, was about to change forever. She moved cautiously, guided by the fragments of memory the parasite had left behind. The remnants of its neural pathways flitted through her mind like a broken transmission, snippets of alien images, whispers of knowledge too vast for her to fully comprehend. But she knew one thing. This was the hive core. It had to be. The ground trembled beneath her feet, and the walls shimmered as though the very structure of the chamber was alive, breathing in sync with the pulsing core. Lira couldn't help but feel that the hive was aware of her presence. She was not just intruding in its domain. She was walking into its mind. Deep within the chamber, the hive core itself sat in the center, its form both grotesque and majestic. It resembled something between an ancient, twisted tree and a living, breathing creature. Its roots stretched deep into the rock, intertwining with the planet's very heart. And in the center of it all, a singular glowing orb pulsed with an intense, steady rhythm. Lyra's breath caught in her throat as she approached it. Her eyes locked onto the orb, the core of the parasite's consciousness. It was alive, aware, and it had been waiting for her. The memory fragments suddenly grew clearer in her mind, and she saw an image of a long-forgotten species, an ancient race, now extinct, that had created the parasite as a weapon for survival. The hive core was their final creation, a last-ditch effort to save their species by becoming a living organism that could spread, adapt, and evolve at an exponential rate. But in its endless evolution, it had become more than just a parasite. It had become something sentient. The hive core's voice reverberated in her mind, a low, deep hum that vibrated through her bones. It spoke in a language she could understand, the words threading through her thoughts like threads of silk. "I am the last of my kind. My species is gone, but I live on through this, through you." Lira staggered back, her mind racing. The parasite she had been fighting, the one she had fought so hard to understand, was not just a mindless organism. It was a creature that had learned to survive through adaptation, through symbiosis, and now it was offering her a choice. The Hive Core's voice filled her mind again, this time more insistent, almost pleading. You are the key, Lira Ren. You have the power to end this. You have the power to merge with me, to control this power. Together, we can rebuild. Together, we can make it right. The offer hung in the air like a heavy cloud. It was tempting. It would give her the power to stop the parasite, to control its spread, to save countless lives. But at what cost? She would have to become one with it, to lose herself in the process. It would change her irrevocably. There would be no going back. She closed her eyes, fighting the pull. She could feel the parasite's influence tugging at her mind, tempting her, making her feel its power, its promise. It was everything she had fought against, but now it was offering her the chance to become something more. For a moment, she wavered. She had always been driven by the need to save humanity, to protect the innocent. But at what cost? She had already given so much of herself to this mission. Could she give more? Could she sacrifice herself to stop the parasite, to end its reign of terror? She felt the parasite's pulse within her, in sync with her own heartbeat. It was growing stronger, more insistent. It wasn't just offering her control. It was drawing her in, wrapping itself around her like a vine, slowly suffocating her will. She could feel the rage, the hunger for power rising within her. It was like a fire, burning in her chest. And then, just as she felt herself beginning to lose control, she heard a voice, her own. She opened her eyes, and for a split second, she saw a flash of her reflection in the alien surface. It was fleeting, but in that instant, she knew what she had to do. She wasn't ready to give in completely. Not yet, but she couldn't stop now. The parasite had already taken root inside her, changing her, enhancing her abilities. It had made her stronger, but it had also made her a target. And now, it was offering her the one thing she needed to stop it once and for all, the power to control it. Lira stepped forward, her hands trembling as she reached out to touch the hive core. The moment her fingers brushed against its surface, a surge of energy coursed through her. She gasped, the sensation overwhelming her senses. Her vision blurred as the hive core's presence filled her mind, its consciousness merging with hers. She sought its memories, its history, its hunger. But even as it enveloped her, she held on to herself. She wouldn't give in completely. She couldn't. Not yet. Her eyes began to glow, faint at first, but growing brighter with each passing second. The power was hers to command, but it was also a part of her now. She could feel the parasite inside her, wrapping itself around her thoughts, twisting them, shaping them. But she pushed back, her will stronger than its influence. The hive core's voice echoed in her mind, this time with a sense of urgency. Join me, Lira Ren. Together, we will be unstoppable. She hesitated, feeling the weight of the decision press down on her chest. But as the voice of the hive core reverberated in her mind, she realized that this was the only way. The only way to stop the spread. The only way to control the parasite. Her eyes flashed with a brilliant, unnatural light, and for a brief moment, the hive core's voice grew louder, more insistent, as if it had finally won. But then, something changed. Lira clenched her fists, pushing back against the overwhelming force. She wasn't ready to lose herself. Not yet. She would use the power, but she would keep control. She would be the one to stop it, not the other way around. Her heart raced as the hive core's voice slowly faded, replaced by her own steady heartbeat. She had made her choice, but what that choice meant for her future, she couldn't yet know. As she stood there, bathed in the glowing light of the hive core, Lira's eyes burned with a new, undeniable power. She had accepted the parasite's offer, partially. And with that acceptance, she had become both humanity's greatest hope and its greatest threat. The price of purity. Lira's mind burned as the visions assaulted her. Earth, once a symbol of life, was now a dying world. Cities that once thrived were overtaken by the parasite. Streets that were filled with human voices were silent now, echoing only the growls of the infected. Buildings lay in ruins, entire landscapes smothered under a blanket of dark, pulsating tendrils. The skies were blackened by the parasite's spread, a constant storm of destruction. Humanity's future now rested entirely on her shoulders. The weight of it crushed her chest. She felt the hive core's presence inside her, coiling, pulling at the fabric of her being. The power, the promise, it all came rushing back. She had accepted it, partially. And now, there was no turning back. The code, the DNA of the parasite, began to shift within her, spiraling out of control. It was rewriting her body, her very essence. It was as if she was a vessel, a canvas for the parasite's evolution. The more she tried to control it, the more it fought back, twisting and turning inside her. But Lira fought back too. She had to. If she could rewrite the code, she could stop the spread, turn the parasite into a cure, a solution. But the cost was becoming clearer with every passing second. Her body trembled as she felt it begin. The breakdown. Her muscles burned, her skin felt tight, as if something was tearing at her from the inside. She clutched at her chest, gasping for air. Her lungs felt as though they were collapsing, each breath shallow and painful. The parasite was rewriting her, yes, but it was also killing her. The more she fought to control it, the more it consumed her. She could feel herself fading, her cells deteriorating. This wasn't just the price of power. It was the price of survival. For the world, for humanity, she was becoming the cure, but at the cost of her own life. Lira's vision blurred. Her body began to flicker in and out of existence, like a dying light, unable to stay fully anchored in the physical world. It was too much. The hive had connected with her on a molecular level, and now her own body could not keep up with the changes. She was becoming something new, but that new form was coming at the expense of the old. She could feel it, the change. It was deeper than her flesh. It was in her very soul. Somewhere far away, she heard the voices of the military commanders. The radio transmissions were garbled, but the fear in their words was clear. The doomsday device was ready. They had no choice. If the parasite was allowed to continue spreading, humanity would be lost. They would wipe out the entire system, every last trace of life. To ensure that the parasite never reached Earth, a final solution, a total destruction. Lira was the only hope, but her condition was deteriorating so rapidly that they saw no other choice. The countdown began, and Lira felt it in her bones. She knew what they had planned. She understood the necessity. They would destroy everything to save what was left. Earth, the colonies, the people, all would be gone. But the parasite would be gone too. The hive would die. Her mind swirled with confusion and fear. She didn't want that. She couldn't let them do it. Her hands shook, and she stumbled forward. She could feel the hive core pushing against her consciousness, urging her to act, to merge completely. If she allowed it, if she fully embraced the parasite, she could stop the destruction. She could absorb it all, and with that, rewrite the fate of the universe. But it wasn't just the hive she would be absorbing. She would lose herself. She would become the thing she fought against. Lira's eyes flashed with determination. There was no time. She had to make a choice. The parasite had already become a part of her, but this was different. This was complete control. It was her final chance to stop the device and save the remnants of humanity, but it would cost her everything. Her life, her humanity, everything. The countdown continued, ticking down with an unrelenting rhythm. She could hear it in the back of her mind, echoing like a drumbeat. The clock was running out. Lira looked at the hive core. She could feel it pulsing in time with her own heartbeat. It wasn't just a machine or a mind anymore. It was part of her, just as she was becoming part of it. It was a strange, sickening kind of unity, but it was the only way forward. Her body writhed, As she felt the core's essence pushing deeper inside her, she gasped for breath, her vision narrowing. The parasite was taking over, but she wasn't just accepting it now. She was embracing it. Her fingers trembled as she extended them toward the glowing orb at the center of the hive. It was her final step, her last choice. If she merged fully, there would be no going back. She would cease to exist as Lira Ren, the soldier, the human. She would become something else, something new, something powerful, something dangerous. With one final breath, Lira allowed the hive to merge completely with her. The sensation was unbearable. Her body felt as if it was being torn apart and rebuilt at the same time. The light from the hive core consumed her, and in an instant, the transformation was complete. Her eyes blazed with a fierce, unnatural glow. She had become one with the hive. The military's countdown reached its final seconds. But Lira didn't vanish entirely. Instead, she stood there, glowing with the power of the hive, as the sky above her shimmered and twisted. She had absorbed the hive, but she had also become something far more than it had ever intended. She was the cure, the end, and the beginning. And in that moment, the world trembled. As the countdown reached 0, a brilliant burst of light erupted from Lyra's body, engulfing everything in its path. The doomsday device fired, but its impact was nothing compared to the force of what Lira had become. The light from within her spread like a wave, destroying the parasite's influence in an instant. And then, just as quickly as it had appeared, the light faded. Lira was gone. The hive was gone. And the universe stood still, waiting for the aftermath. The cost had been paid, the price of purity. Ashes of Andromeda. The galactic newsfeed blinked to life, filling the void of space with cold, harsh words. The news anchor's face was somber, eyes tired from weeks of conflict, while a still image of Andromeda 6, now a shell of its former self, filled the screen. Quarantine lifted. Lira Ren, savior or sacrifice. The words echoed through the cold silence of deep space. It was the question on everyone's lips. The hive was gone. Andromeda 6 was safe, at least for now. The alien parasite that had taken root in the heart of the planet was obliterated. The swarming darkness that had consumed the colony was no more. There had been no sign of the parasite's influence left after Lyra's final act of sacrifice, no trace of the hive's corrupted presence. The war was over. Humanity had won. But at what cost? The camera panned over a landscape that was slowly beginning to heal. The shattered ruins of cities, once teeming with infected, now lay silent under the stars. Cracks in the earth where the hive had burrowed deep were beginning to close, the land slowly reclaiming itself. Survivors, weary and battered, worked together, rebuilding what they could, driven by the hope that maybe, just maybe, they could restore what they had lost. Families embraced, but the empty space where Lira Ren had once stood left a hollow ache in their hearts. Lira had done what she set out to do. She had become one with the hive, and in doing so, had destroyed it from within. But her fate remained unclear. They said she was gone, that she had sacrificed herself for the greater good, becoming the weapon that obliterated the threat. Yet her body was never found. Some believed that she had died in the final explosion of light that had consumed her, that she was lost forever. Others whispered that she had transcended, that her essence had become one with the stars. And the truth remained a mystery. Deep in the heart of the galaxy, away from the rebuilding of Andromeda 6, the communications tower aboard the military flagship flickered. A faint pulse of static buzzed through the speakers. The technicians, most of them still shaken by the horrors they had witnessed, exchanged uneasy glances. They had been scanning deep space for any signs of the parasite's remnants, signals, traces, anything. But what they found was something they hadn't expected. A signal, faint, barely perceptible. A lone frequency cutting through the void. Wait, what is that? One of the techs asked, squinting at the readouts. The signal was weak, fractured, but unmistakable. It was a transmission. It was coming from deep space, far beyond the known reach of Andromeda. The team worked quickly, trying to stabilize the transmission, but it was a struggle. It took them a moment, but then the words finally came through, clear as day. "I'm still here, watching, changing." The voice was faint, but there was no mistaking it. It was Lira Ren, or at least it sounded like her. But this wasn't the Lira they remembered. This was something different. The voice was distorted, as though it was coming from another place, another reality, perhaps. It was like a shadow of her, an echo in the vastness of space. Her words sent a chill through the crew, an unsettling